Okay, live here Sunday afternoon, Sunday night. Colin Cowherd, fresh off a live appearance in Seattle for maybe the game of the year. Got to see his Trojans get worked, and then he saw the Niners and the Eagles go down. What a weekend of football, Colin.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. San Francisco, off that Dallas win, Debo gets hurt, McCaffrey not there for a big chunk of it. It did, and Cleveland's defense is loaded. So I kind of felt like if you're going to lose, the kicker had a makeable field goal, missed it. That's about as good a loss. And let's be honest about Philadelphia. They've been screwing around for weeks. I said this before in my preamble. They're a really good team that doesn't quite know what they are. And that's where coordinators come in. Like they cinch it up, a good coordinator, and you find an identity. Edelman told me last week on the show, he said, every September, Bill's trying to find the identity. You could bring the same roster back. You'd have a different identity. Philadelphia doesn't know what they are. They're just really talented. And eventually they got bit. After all these weeks of winning, they got bit.
I might sound like a homer here, but to me, the Niners is a good loss because they legitimately got outplayed. Bosa said it after the game. We didn't deserve to win that game. The Eagles were in full control of the game. All they had to do, speaking of coordinators, you look at the box score. DeAndre Swift, who has been a fantastic addition for him, had 10 carries. The Jets are not built for you to lean on them. You drop back to pass what they did about 800 times a day. That puts the Jets in advantage. And I understand some corners are out. Who cares? Their defensive lineman, Lane Johnson's in the locker room. So it makes it even easier for the 10 defensive linemen that the Jets have. The guy they drafted last year in the first round, Johnson's playing fantastic. They got several other guys. Their linebackers were flying around. I did not understand. And listen, they've struggled, Brian Johnson, to get a rhythm with this offense like Shane Steichen had last year. It was pretty clear today, just run the ball. And they just kept passing it. And that ultimately, obviously, Jalen has had some off games. The pass at the end of the game was devastating. We could nitpick letting them score, right? You had a minute 40. If you stop them twice, you only need a field goal to win. But regardless, that pick and that spot, and really the reason they were there, they just were obsessed with passing. I didn't understand why they didn't just run it down their throat.
Well, I mean, I think this is one of the things you get into is coordinators, sometimes selfishly, or they just get into a tunnel. They're not thinking about the macro level or the team. They're thinking about, I've got my plays. We've worked on them. I know they'll work. The Jets are down a corner, and they kind of live in a tunnel. And it's like, this is why, by the way, John, as you know, why some coaches like to have control of their offense or their defense is that, special teams coaches, you get paid more if you have more block kicks. Yeah. But there are times you don't want to go for a block kick and get a penalty and give a team a first down. And so I think sometimes Philadelphia, remember, Sirianni struggled when he was play calling. He struggled. And then he gave it over to Steichen, who's brilliant, and they flourished. So then they hire Steichen's replacement, and he's not as good as Shane. So the offense isn't as good. So they don't need to go back to Sirianni, but I thought they got a little exposed today. And I also think in this league is nobody's going 17-0. And Philadelphia, how many weeks in a row? They hadn't played a complete game all season. They had a really good second half against Tampa. They had halves. They had series. And they tend to be really good in moments because they've been in so many big games. Philadelphia is a big game, big city, loud media. They're a pressurized organization. You know that. They've been in big spots.
Yeah.
The Jets usually fail in those spots. But I think eventually in this league, you screw around, you mess around, when you're a little kid and your mom, don't play with the oven, don't screw around with the electrical sockets and put a nickel in there. You get shocked eventually, and Philadelphia did.
Another thing that, his box score wasn't great. He's not going to throw for 300 yards, but it's pretty evident. And I think we talked about this, was it last week or 2 weeks ago, with Zach Wilson. He has improved. He is a functional player. He's not living up to the number 2 overall pick. He doesn't look like he's going to be Trevor Lawrence anytime soon, but he played pretty serviceable today. He had some really good plays on some boot actions with guys in his face, dumping it off. I thought, relative to the bar that he set last year, he's definitely improved. And to me, the organization, because I thought it was crazy to keep him, because obviously you're just one snap away as a backup quarterback, and you got a 40-year-old quarterback who tears Achilles. but they've done a pretty good job. Clearly, the running back's really good. Brees Hall, I mean, he's a star.
Yeah.
And the defense. But I give Zach Wilson some credit, like Justin Fields, for just staying mentally tough when both guys could have tapped out early in the season.
I want to talk about a game fewer people watch, Baltimore and Tennessee. Baltimore struggled in the red zone. But I got to tell you, the first half by Lamar Jackson was brilliant. Sidearm, moving, pocket. John, I think he is so dynamic as an athlete that we're not giving him credit now. He's gotten significantly better as a pocket thrower. He really has become Josh Allen, because he has such a howitzer. He was a bad thrower initially with a lot of turnovers, but because he's such a power thrower that we still consider him thrower first, runner second, even though in previous 2 years, he ran at Lamar's level. Lamar was so profound and had a quirky delivery, right? Like he couldn't play from behind. I watched that first half and I'm like, Jesus, if you told me a dark horse to the Super Bowl, Baltimore, Zay Flowers keeps getting better. Odell had a catch today. Aguilar, it's amazing. Aguilar with New England and Mac Jones looked like it's over.
I know.
He had a play today where he almost busted it for 70 yards. And it's like, as we know, the quarterback makes the receiver. Larry Fitzgerald in Arizona, the better the quarterback, the better the Larry. I know a lot of people didn't watch it, and they have struggled in the red zone with injuries. Boy, Lamar, he has become a legitimate pocket guy with movement.
I thought one of the best halves of football that has been played, and it was on clear display as we realize how good Cleveland's defense is, was Lamar a couple weeks ago against them. And, Deshaun missed that game. DTR was in, and he just eviscerated him in the first half. I think I completely agree. One, I think Steve Young is the best total package of all time. But really by the mid-'90s, he was a pure pocket quarterback. He was not a runner. Michael Vick, and I saw it firsthand in Philly, was such a reckless runner because he couldn't slide, so he took a lot of shots. Lamar, to me, has become kind of the total package of a lot like Jalen Hurts. They know how to avoid hits. They are not getting molly-whopped down the field. Lamar's faster than Jalen. But as you saw today against the Jets, Lamar probably has a little more touch currently, the way that he's playing this year than Jalen for sure. So, they got a bunch of injuries. They have been really good for the most part this season. And again, I go back to a couple weeks ago. When you have that ability against, right now, the best defense in the league in Cleveland, you can beat anyone on any given week. And they always, for whatever reason, get a million guys injured. But he's proven, and last year was weird with the money, the contract going back and forth, the no agent. They've clearly got that figured out. And to me, when I watch him right now, all season long, he's been fantastic. I think he's definitely, I wouldn't even call him an MVP dark horse anymore. He's smack dab in the mix.
And if you didn't watch the Steeler game, they lost. They completely outplayed them. They had 2 touchdowns dropped. So that's one of those games, because the NFL to a large
and I think
degree,
eight total drops. Now he did have a bad pick in that game, but yeah, he had a bunch of drops.
That NFL is still largely, except Sunday night, Monday night, a regional television product. So if you live Denver West, you don't see Lamar in a lot of these games. So, and most people out West did not get up early like I did to watch this game. That Pittsburgh game, they totally outplayed him. But Tennessee's a physical team, and God, Lamar was good. One other thing in the NFL, I got to give credit. 2 things can be true. That the Rams would not have won a Super Bowl without Matt Stafford. And Jared Goff and the Lions, outside of Philly and San Francisco, they have the talent people think Dallas does. I watched them today. I mean, they don't have great corners, pass rush, playmakers, O-line, coordinators. Brad Holmes upstairs in that executive suite. This is a really good roster. It's not San Francisco, but I think it's in the class of Philadelphia. Probably. And again, if you had Brock Purdy and his contract, you could have 2 more stars. So you could go buy a star corner. They could go, they can buy a McCaffrey. They can keep 2 great linebackers. I think Stafford's good and McVay's having a great year, but I watched Detroit today and I'm like, hey, they are the Cowboys. They have the better quarterback. right? We talked Dan Quinn. They have Ben Johnson. They have a better pass rush. They have a better offensive line. I think Detroit's really good.
I'm glad you brought them up because I think they're a sneaky dark horse for the number 1 seed. Look at their schedule. They have not played Minnesota yet. They have not played the Bears yet. They already beat Green Bay in Green Bay, so they get them at home. I mean, the toughest game on their schedule, they won week 1 against the Chiefs. They still got Denver. They still got the Raiders. I mean, this team, the talent they have. The other thing is the trade they made with Stafford. Think of the players that netted them. Even last year, what did they do? Everyone's like, you can't take a running back in the first round. Well, they traded back and they added the tight end as well, who's fantastic. They got today Jamison Williams touchdown. They drafted him last year, torn ACL, one of the fastest players in the league. To me, they're high-end impact players. Now they're a little younger than the Eagles and the Niners, but they have a chance with the tight end, with the wide receiver. St. Brown is fantastic. How about that touchdown he had today? The way Goff's playing, right? I mean, he's a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. Aiden Hutchinson has a chance to be one of the better pass rushers. They have a bunch of Pro Bowl high-end guys. And when you have that on any, they destroyed Tampa. I mean, they shoved that game to me was, and Tampa's may not be bad. I mean, Tampa has a lot of high-end players too, and they shoved them around on the road off a bye.
Go to that game 2 weeks ago against Green Bay. It was not physically competitive. Like, I don't know if the Packers had 5 starters. You know, Jair Alexander clearly starts.
Yeah.
But I don't know if the Packers had 5 starters that would start for Detroit. Like, their O-line has to be 2 or 3 in the league. And, you know, Goff's funny. I've said for years, I think Goff's a better Matt Ryan, and Matt Ryan won an MVP. He's a better Matt Ryan. I think he moves a little better, stronger arm, number 1 pick. You know, it's again, I think people forget Goff got to a Super Bowl. Goff couldn't beat San Francisco. Well, hell, the Rams can't beat him with Stafford.
No.
That's a bad matchup. You start looking now, like the Rams got the ring with Stafford, but they've got a big decision to make. Like, they have about 5 needs next year, and they can only get about 3 of those for immediate help if they have a rookie quarterback. And I don't know what they do with Stafford. He's still good. So was Kupp. So was Donald. But let's talk Rams as they beat Arizona. Is there a better sports month than October? Let me think about that. No. Football's underway, baseball playoffs, basketball, hockey seasons are upon us. Pretty good. While we love watching our favorite teams on TV, there is nothing better than watching sports in person. You know that. I know that. The drama, the crowd, the energy, the adrenaline, it's perfect. And the best way to go to any of these games and see these games in person is Game Time, the fastest growing ticketing app in the United States. Game Time is the only ticket app that gives you peace of mind, okay, with your purchase. That's a biggie. They let you see the view, Game Time does, from your seats. So when you buy it, you know exactly what you're getting with Game Time. Their all-in prices also let you know what you're getting and what you're paying up front. There's no hidden fees with Game Time, and it takes no time at all. Nobody wants a headache, right? I want tickets. I want them now. I want to buy them. 2 taps, 10 seconds. You can buy your tickets. That's it. 2 taps, all it takes. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. So download the Game Time app, quickly create an account, and use the redeem code Colin. That's me. Redeem code Colin, C-O-L-I-N. $20 if you do that. $20 off your first purchase if you do that. Terms now apply. Again, create an account, the redeem code Colin, C-O-L-I-N, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. For a limited time, Verizon customers can get Netflix and NFL Plus for just $25 a month. It's called Plus Play. That's $120 in annual savings. Plus Play is a platform where Verizon customers can shop, manage, and save on the subscriptions that you already love, right? Like Netflix and NFL Plus. With NFL Plus Premium, you get access to live games on mobile, my fave, NFL Red Zone, NFL Network, and more. Just go to Verizon.com/plusplay. Verizon.com/plusplay to save on Netflix and NFL Plus today for a limited time only now. Limited time only. The NFL season, it's going strong. And DraftKings Sportsbook hooking new customers up with an offer even stronger. Bet $5, that's it, on any game this week to score $200 instantly in bonus bets. How easy is that? And DraftKings isn't stopping there. All customers can take advantage of a sweetener offer every game this October. Get in on the action. Get in on the game day greatness. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. The code is Colin, C-O-L-I-N. New customers can score $200 instantly in bonus bets when you just bet $5 on the National Football League. That easy. That's the code Colin, C-O-L-I-N, only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. The crown is yours. What do they do? I've done this in my head a million times, and I've texted Les Need, is that they need probably an upgrade at left tackle, another edge rusher, probably a number one running back. They moved off Van Jefferson. They'll probably get another wide receiver. They don't have a lot of money still because of Stafford unless he redoes his contract, and he didn't want to do that in the offseason. Would you, if you were the Rams, you're Les Need, would you say to yourself, I'm going to trade down in the first round and get 2/4, 2/5, whatever, and give Matt one more run at a Super Bowl? Or we're going to take the quarterback or even move up. We're not going to be a Super Bowl team. We'll get a few players, but may have to give up a second pick or a third pick. And then just realize Matt's going to have another 9-win season, and then we're going to move on. Would you give Matt the extra year? And not draft in this quarterback class, not go. Move down in the draft, get multiple players and say, Matt, we're going to give you one more Super Bowl run.
To me, if he's on the field all year long, I mean, they're competing for a wild card spot and you keep rolling it back. To me, I'm invested in the line of scrimmage. I mean, they need offensive linemen. I'm drafting multiple offensive linemen because, as you can see, Sean McVay is an offensive mind. They haven't really had a running back for years. They've been competitive, right, since Todd Gurley. What he's doing with the passing game, now they got Cooper Kupp back. Yeah, I mean, to me, as long as Stafford's healthy, and that was my biggest question mark, because last year you get the elbow thing we saw a couple of years ago with Big Ben, it just fell off a cliff. Well, you're watching Stafford this year, he looks fantastic. I mean, he's slinging that around like he did in Detroit. So to me, you just get a little more talented up front, because in the NFC, think who you're going to have to beat. Obviously, the 49ers. Why do they struggle with them? Can't pass block. Dallas, Philly, all great pass rushes. Now Detroit with Aiden Hutchinson, their defensive line. So to me, I have no problem running back with Aiden Hutchinson. I also think, with Matt Stafford. But when you look at some of these other teams, you can draft guys in the middle round at quarterback, because part of having Sean McVay, now they did it with Stetson Bennett. I don't know all the details. Something's a little weird there. That looks like they regret that one, right? But I don't mind the mindset, taking a guy 3rd, 4th, 5th round. Hell, the 49ers starting quarterbacks in the 7th round. So you have Sean McVay. The reason you pay him all this money is because, remember, Jared Goff, now he was the number 1 overall pick. But when Sean McVay took over the job, everyone thought the guy was going to be out of the league in like 2 years based off his rookie season, right? Because it was pretty ugly. And then he immediately, that year, they were in the playoffs. Within 2 years, they're competing for a Super Bowl. So, yeah, I mean, I would roll with Stafford as long as I feel good about his health. But this quarterback class is, and you saw, on Saturday, the talent, past the first 2 guys is pretty elite. I mean, it really is.
So let's talk some college football here to wrap this up. I think Penix, I don't know what his comp is, but he was willing, with a better receiving crew, to sit longer in the pocket, sees the field well, beautiful deep ball sideline thrower, was much more willing, had more physical courage to sit in the pocket to the last second, muddy pocket, get hit. Bo Nix is Derek Carr. Generally, first, second read, wants to get it out. Decisive, accurate, gets it out. You can move the pocket with him, but that's not what he is. Very much, to me, Derek Carr, where professional, accurate, but didn't wait an extra beat, played with a much cleaner pocket, didn't wait the extra beat, got it out, got it completed. Underneath stuff where I thought he could have waited another half second to a second. Penix will just sit down there until his guys get deep. I said this earlier. What I don't like about what I see with Colorado and USC programs, this is still college football, and I'm for the NIL, but they become very coach quarterback dominant. I'm the man. Oregon, Washington have first-round quarterbacks. They're about the program. And it was so refreshing to go, I want there to be a gap between pro football and college football. Like,
Agreed.
I like the cheerleaders, the bands, the collegiate feel. I don't have a problem with NIL. But I think USC has gotten sloppy. I think they're about Caleb making great plays, too much Heisman talk. I think Shedeur Sanders, Deion Sanders, I love the mission. But again, like, it's not a complete football program. And I love college football. And part of what I love about it is its history and Penn State's uniforms and the big house. And I think USC feels a bit bougie to me. And they've fallen in love with the brand USC, and they don't really do anything well. They don't run well. They don't pass block. They don't tackle well. And in a strange way, as I watched them play Notre Dame, I said, they deserve this. They've gotten a little too much love too quickly. And Washington and Oregon, having sat there, those are buttoned up, do multiple things well. Kalen DeBoer, Dan Lanning, really well coached, excellent NFL players. But it's about the community, the programs, the stadium, the fan. I mean, Autzen and Husky Stadium are about as loud as college football gets. Yeah. And so as I watched that game, and then I watched USC Notre Dame, and I'm like, I found Washington and Oregon really easy to root for, and USC increasingly kind of a hard watch and hard to root for.
Listen, I know you've talked to him. I like Lincoln philosophically from a football sense. I don't agree with a lot of the things, the way that he looks at the game. Obviously, the quarterback matters, but he just doesn't care about defense. I mean, he strictly doesn't. And his ethos as a coach is represented by the way they play, and there's a softness to it. There just is. And I think, look at some of the things that have happened this year. The banning of the reporter. Like, what are we doing? That feels so, non-Power 5, or such a small-minded move to me. And then there's another thing that I've been told by NFL people. He shut it down for NFL scouts after week 2, I think, till the Cal game, where every other program, they always say about Nick Saban, you could knock on the door at 3 a.m. and someone's there to let you in. And the one thing I've heard about Oregon and Dan Lanning, where does he come from? Kirby Smart, who's a Nick Saban NFL operation. You go to their practice last year, you go to their practice this year, it looks the same. Same thing with Washington. It's a very consistent place. And I think sometimes in this transfer world, and talking to a lot of scouts that go to these practices, they're like, you never know what you're going to get from year to year. Think about Pete Carroll's in their heyday, or Chip Kelly or Harbaugh. The same group of players were there 3 to 5 years, right? So the rivalry, the Notre Dame game mattered. Well, listen, I mean, I would have signed Lincoln Riley too, but Lincoln Riley is a Texas guy, right? It's where he's from, Texas Tech, Oklahoma. The USC Notre Dame rivalry means a lot to a lot of people, but to him, to Caleb, does it mean the same? You saw Oregon and Washington, some of those players, and listen, they got transfers too, but think about Bo Nix. What's he used to? Rivalry, Alabama, Auburn. Like he played, and listen, he had some flaws yesterday, but I was impressed just with his effort. Yeah. Obviously, watching all the kids in that game. To me, USC kind of tapped out. They kind of laid down. Same thing with Colorado. And that's what happens sometimes. What happened to the NBA? It kind of became a mercenary league. People don't care as much, right? When you get players, you get 53 transfers, you lose a game when you're up 29-0 to Colorado. You have no business losing at home. I mean, that was, let's face it, obviously the wide receiver, made an incredible catch on the back of Travis Hunter, but still, that's a bad loss. To me, 48-20, Colin. it's one thing to lose. Listen, Oregon lost. You hang your head high. USC, that's an indictment on the program.
Yeah, and I think to your point is when you have a kind of a talent infusion, the danger of the transfer portal is that we that's why Colorado was so shocking to all of us, that they were good in week 1 and efficient. Yeah. We're like, but over the course of time, you can go with friends, 5 or 6 friends on a road trip, and it works for 2 days. 10 days later, y'all hate each other, right? It's like there's something about family. And I feel like when I went to Washington, Oregon, I feel like there was so much depth in the programs. The players cared. They're crying. They care so much. They're so into everything, fight song on. And Washington and Oregon have transfers, but USC is like a transfer program.
Yeah.
And I think the longer the season goes on, their O-line play gets worse. They don't tackle. They don't run the football consistently. I don't blame it all on Caleb. He's running for his life. They can't. I mean, it's just he has to be a superhero on every.
But doesn't that speak to, like, let's use the NFL as an example right now. If Patrick Mahomes has a bad game, Andy and Veach have built the team, they can win. Today, Purdy barely throws for 100 yards. The Niners are in the game. The Browns, they're missing their starting quarterback, can't compete. Part of building a team, right? When your quarterback, he's a human being. Now, he was really bad, but when he has a bad game, can you compete? And they couldn't even, I mean, they weren't even close, right? Where the other two programs, for example, like Washington and Oregon, could have a down game from their quarterback and definitely still compete. The running back's really good.
Yeah.
Their other playmakers defensively, to me, Dan Lanning and Kalen DeBoer, I've been saying this for a while. You can see the Kalen DeBoer thing coming from a mile away. Ohio State, now they're going in the Big Ten. He's going to be placing these big programs. Ryan Day loses to Michigan again. The rumblings start. That's a guy that some of these big programs, not that Washington isn't, but they've never had those $100 million coaches yet. Maybe it's time. But the Ohio States of the world are going to start looking at him when you win games like that. I mean, that guy's a star. Dan Lanning's pretty damn good too, but Oregon pays.
Yeah, well, Phil Knight, opens the checkbook. So yeah, no, it's a lot of people didn't like the conference realignment, but I got news for you. If you give me Oregon, Washington every year, the big dogs will still play. If you give me USC, UCLA, the city championship, I don't need USC to play the regional, Washington State, Oregon State, Arizona State. So it was, I like college football in person better than I like the NFL. I will say it was a national TV game, so there was a lot of TV timeouts, and you're sitting there. Thank God Montlake is so beautiful. So when you have 9 minutes, you're knocking down a beer, you're looking at the crowd, and you're looking at the water.
Do you think to me he's a bigger version of Tua? The one thing with a player like Penix,
very interesting.
The only thing that makes me a little nervous, like with Tua, is the lack of mobility in the modern day game. We see how many sweet defensive linemen are all over the NFL because he throws the ball as beautiful as you're going to find at any level. It's just, can he move well enough? But how's he not going to be a top 10 pick?
Well, I think I couldn't come up with a comp. That's probably it. A bigger, stronger, more of a power thrower Tua. He throws a gorgeous ball, not really going to move much.
Tough.
By the way, he had 2 ACL tears at Indiana, so he's got an injury history. That's a really good comp. I thought Bo Nix was Derek Carr. Michael Penix is a bigger, a stronger Tua. That's a really good comp. That's what it is. And that's really,
He was getting peppered there in the middle of the game. The scouts love, he was barely getting up, but he just kept getting back under center, kept getting a shotgun. It's like, this guy's tough. He's tough, obviously battling back from the ACL injuries, but in the middle of a game with that many people watching, I thought Oregon was playing fantastic. That guy was relentless. And to me, the Dan Lanning going for it in the middle of the field, the momentum you give another team when you turn it over on downs, you just give them life, and to me, so it's a double whammy. It's one, you give them the ball back in the middle of the field, but you also, the excitement that goes to that other sideline. And I understand it's his MO to be kind of Brandon Staley-ish, but in that spot, you had really dominated the second half. Just make him go 85 yards.
Well, and I also think Dan, his brand, if he has one, is an aggressive guy.
Yeah.
He'll taunt people on social, smoke the cigar, the pregame speech. And so it's hard when you're an aggressive guy and you preach that and you get into that moment
to punt.
Hey, we're punting, right? It's like, it's his brand. Whereas Kalen DeBoer is very humble, very under the radar about the players. He reminds me a lot of Chris Peterson. And, Peterson is behind the scenes. So they got DeBoer, and then Chris Peterson's right behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And I think they took their ops guy from like Michigan. They spent like 7 figures on him. I think I'm right there. So let me tell you something. Washington's got money. They may not have Phil Knight money, but they got money, and they're going to have to start saving their pennies because Kalen DeBoer is going to get big time offers. And Washington may not be Ohio State or Michigan, but they are in that somewhere between like 7 to 12 program where environment, history. I don't know where Oregon's probably, Washington's got the natty, Oregon doesn't. you can look at Oregon and go, Phil Knight's the program, or it never exists.
Yeah.
Washington was great with Don James. They were good with Jim Owen, Don James, Rick Neuheisel, pretty good with Sark, Chris Peterson, now Kalen DeBoer. Like, Washington is like Ohio State, maybe a little lesser, that when they get the right coach, they win 9-10 games and they're in the playoff picture. And this team's good. They're good.
Yeah, I mean, you and me are West Coast guys. I was thinking, meanwhile, Wisconsin and Iowa are playing like a 2-0 game. The Big Ten is lucky to add those two programs. They made the right decision. Obviously, USC, UCLA, a no-brainer, but those two programs, I mean, they're better right now than USC, clearly, on the football field. But that's those brands, and that beside Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State, they fit right in. And honestly, on any given week, they could beat them as well.
Yeah, well, listen, I've gone to a lot of Husky games in driving windy rainstorms.
Yeah,
UCLA may struggle with the weather transition. Washington, Oregon are not.
No.
John Middlekauff, the Volume 3 and Out. Good seeing you, buddy.
Thanks, Colin. Have a good week.
And now our segment called Making It Look Easy, brought to you by Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm. Tua once again made it look easy. Is it me, or is every Miami Dolphins game in the end look like a Big 12 matchup? Their track meets, trailing, leading, coming from behind, blowing out opponents. Tua again leads the NFL in pass touchdowns. Scuffed a little early, but the Miami Dolphins continue to be one of the great television watches. Fun watching them again, just like Tua. Morgan & Morgan makes it look easy. They have 100 offices nationwide, 100 in our 50 states, and more than 800 lawyers, with over $16 billion claimed over the years. You are going to get a fair and reasonable settlement at Morgan & Morgan. If you're injured, go to forthepeople.com/Colin or dial #529. Check out America's largest injury law firm, Morgan & Morgan. They make it look easy.